Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Let's make dua inshallah before we start. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam tabarakta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa shafi'ina wa habibina wa maulana Muhammad wa barak wa sallam. Allahumma rabbana zidna ilman nafi'ah wa amala mutaqabbala ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Firstly, I'd like to send praise and salutation unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for affording us the opportunity and the time, inshallah, to be here once again to continue with our classes. From tonight, inshallah, we want to look at the angle of married life or a life of marriage and the benefits that one have in marriage, the spirituality with marriage, and all that goes with marriage. What we do as Muslims and what is expected from us as Muslims in a married situation. When we go into an institution of marriage with someone and a spouse, what do we do? So in such conditions, we look at what the Quran tells us. And first the Quran tells us that we live wa'ashiruna, and we live with our companions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions again, hunna libasul lakum, that they are a companion unto you. And many other verses, litaskunu fiha, that you live with them and stay with them in kindness. And they are a coolness to you and they are comfort to you. Many aspects concerning what the relationship should be in a married situation. In marriage life, there is an aspect that we must understand. What really is it when someone gets married? What to expect? First, a person had the inclination to get married. They get married. And they were very happy. And they were thinking that everything is going to be great. And they had this expectation within them that they are going to remain like this all of their lives. And if we ask ourselves, every married couple, how long do you want your marriage to last? How long do you want your marriage to last? And that is something we all want until what? We die. We don't want to leave it out. We definitely want our marriage to last a lifetime on the face of this earth and for it to continue for the life of the hereafter. That is the desire. That is the maqsad and the goal that one would have when they get married, with the hope and expectation that it will last them a lifetime. But when we look at the reality of the world today, and we look at the situation not only in our time and on past times, what was the condition and the institution of marriage? When people get married, do they really stay together until the end of time in their life? Statistics would show a totally different thing. So we ask ourselves how long, and our desire will be a lifetime. But what would you give? If we ask the question, what would you give up from your own desires, from your own self, to hold on to a marriage? What are you willing to sacrifice to hold on to your marriage? And is it worth holding on to? These are questions that we must definitely have probing in our minds at all times. What would you give to hold on to your marriage? And is it worth holding on to? So how do we answer these questions when it comes to marriage? Because we had that inclination and desire for this individual, and then we reach a part in our life when we'd ask, what would we give? Or what would it cost, and is it really worth holding on to our marriage? But then we will go back to ourselves, why did I ever get married to this person in the first place? And that brings us to understand a few things. What we need to understand is why it is the way it is today, and how it was before our time and before certain conditions and situations came into place. Because we would understand that many times we are in a marriage and we don't know what is going on in that marriage. We don't know what is propelling us in different directions. Where are we going? Where are we heading in our marriage? We don't know why we are there. Sometimes we're just living by the day in that marriage. We don't know why we are there. We are just functioning. We're just functioning because, you know, it's time to get married, time to have a family, and you're just functioning what? As a husband or as a wife. And you're just functioning in life every day like this. Is this what marriage was all about? To just be a machine or operation or a function in life? Isn't this what Allah has made this for? From the ayats of Quran, definitely it does not say that. Litaskuna, to live with them, to enjoy, to have comfort, to share, to enjoy the ambience of tranquility within your companionship. That is what the Quran is saying. This is what it is saying to us. So therefore something has to be giving way to this. If we look at what happens in society today, if someone has the ability and has the permit to drive a motorcycle and then decides to drive a big trailer truck, he decides to drive a big trailer truck, and police decides to stop him at the side of the road, would he get a ticket? All he has license for is to drive a motorcycle. But he's driving what? A trailer truck. Would he get a ticket? Without a doubt, he will, because he failed, one, the regulations, and having the necessary permit that allows him to drive that truck. But what was essential behind the permit? Is it just buying the permit? Or is it understanding what goes behind the permit? What goes behind this permit is that that person learns rules and regulation how to drive a trailer truck. Before he gets that permit, then he is tested on it, and then he is granted a permit. Not just like that. So it is not as simple as we think. There are rules and regulation in order for it to work. And there are conditions that is going to cause that same person, even though he has the same rules and regulations to drive this truck, suppose some other vehicle decides to drive directly in front of him. No amount of rules and regulation is going to tell him to stop in time, not to not come in a situation where he'll crash into someone or kill someone by the means of what? The negligence of others. Because all the rule and regulation is broken and the other party have. So no matter what one would have, there's a certain element of choice and condition that also relates in that relationship. So let's look at what society has done for marriage. If we ask ourselves, if we wake up one morning and there is no electricity, no means of transport as we have today, we have no mobile automated transportation, none whatsoever. We wake up, we have no food in cans in our pantry, no store to buy any food. You wake up one morning with your wife in this condition. No food in any cans, no grocery stores to buy anything, any form. No electricity, none of these things. And you say, let's start a life together without these things. What does it feel like? No phone, no television, can't drive to but talk about buying gas because you have no means of what use for a vehicle, no food in cans, no groceries. Where is the first meal going to come from? what you're going to do, the whole system changes. Everything changes because your life changes by that condition of not having the direct comforts of this life. So the system is that you will no longer think about these things. You know, start to think, well, wait, I have to go and start to plant some land. I have to decide to have some animals. I have to do this, I have to do that, because where am I going to get food? How am I going to survive with my family? What am I going to do? Time and conditions also changes the way we live with our own spouses. Time and conditions and the way we live also depends on how we live with our spouse. Don't think that it is a dream world. So many times you would see movies and think that these ideal married couples in these movies, they are just like what I want to be in life. But they might have everything going for them. But me, we have to do 10 times or probably 100 times more different things to achieve the same comfort, or to achieve some level and degree of happiness in that relationship. So time and condition and the things that we have around us do make a difference in our marriage, in the way we live with each other. And that tells us one thing. Because before the Industrial Revolution, life was without any of these things. Many of these things never existed. So what used to take place in a relationship? What used to take place in a relationship is that usually there was one person amongst the household who would preferably be the wife, taking care of the needs of the house, while the husband would what? Work the lands, however it is, gather the food, prepare the food, have it preserved and store, and they would live like this, and hours would be what? Longer. Time would have to be more difficult for them to acquire, to travel, to do anything. But they survived under that condition. They survived under that condition and live in a relationship. And even in our time, in our own country, there were difficult times in the early days. But people survived those difficulties when they had no means of major transport. They would ride a bike, they would ride a cart, a horse cart, an animal, and they would go from different places, but they survived in their relationship. But it was difficult. It was difficult. But then there was only what? One person working dependent on the condition that surrounded that relationship. But they lived like that. But what about society today? And if we look at one other thing before we even reach that state, they had what? Children upon children upon children. Lots of children. And they live in an extended family. Since the Industrial Revolution in the 1950s, what took place with family life? Where did marriage go in all of that afterwards? When this took place, men and women started to what? Work. They started to work because every industry, every business, every type of factory needed what? Employees. They needed people to work. And today, if you check the statistics of workplaces, when they say a country is fully employed or have a state of employment, they don't talk about men. They talk about men and women. If we only check our own homes, our own families, how many of our own daughters and sons are working? How many of our wives are working? How many of our husbands are working? We would see that everyone almost in our household are working. Working and doing what? Whose idea are they trying to fulfill? What are they trying to fulfill? What are they trying to achieve by work? They are trying to achieve by the same work the basic economic principle of acquiring food, clothing, shelter, some place to rest their head, and call it what? Home and life. But what is the difference from then to now? And that's what affects marriages today. And the situation with marriages all over the world is that when this situation started, money started to flourish. well started to flourish. And from the 1960s to the 70s, there was a period known as when we had a boom of children. The largest amount of births took place in between the 60s and the 70s in children. And that population would be now between their 40s and 50s. That population would be now within their 40s and 50s. What really happened? And we have to understand what is really taking place with us, because if we don't understand this, we don't know where we are heading in our marriages today. It says, when they reach this position, work, husband working, wife working. But what happens in getting a job? Husband has to be what? Educated. Wife has to be educated. And no doubt education is part of Islam and is always encouraged. But what goes along with this education when both parties work? Whereas in the earlier days, the husband seems to have what? The authority by providing the wealth and handing it over to the wife to take care of this wealth. Now the wife seems to be what? Equal with wealth, and is an equal provider in the home. And now they decide, well, who paying the bills? Who doing what? Who putting transport? Who paying for the house? Who paying for food? Who doing what? So they are deciding now that they are sharing or putting their money together or spending on different things. And you know, when you say, well, listen, my car, I put in the bill for it. You can't go to it as you like. But there's a conflict of interest. Now our money, our working together, living together becomes what? A difficulty by just what? Working together and spending money on our home. We're not going to discuss it. We're going to understand what is the complication of one thing. Just the job with the money. How it is going to be spent. That's one of the difficulties and conflicts and major problems in homes. Then, what other difficulty comes out of what we see today? When husband and wife are working, what happens to the children? Do they have grandfather and grandmother to take care of them all the time? No. Because most of the time, grandfather and grandmother is also working. So who takes care of the children? A hired care or sitter. A hired care or sitter is also hired and get a new job, a service job, to take care of your children. So the job goes on. There is no room because everyone is employed, because this system works well for that. But what is the difficulty when children grow up out of their parents and without their parents around them in the most important and integral part of their life? Love does not exist. The attachment does not exist. There are no way around that. So children are now attached to what? Not the babysitter, you know. Babysitter puts on what? Television, play this game, play that game, and a child lives in what? An environment away from communication with parents. That's why today, many children cannot what? Communicate with their parents. Because they are away from their parents from the very beginning. Jobs take away them from this. This is what our society offers us today. But that is not all. It affects the life of a relationship. Even if we have gotten married with the intention of having children, these children are just like mechanic and machines. We just have them and someone else takes care of them. We never really have the benefit of the greater enjoyment with our children. It is either the sitter or the schools or someone take them away from us, and we have never really genuinely enjoyed the relationship with children in that marriage. They will just become a part of the business. They become part of the business or the system in what marriage is supposed to really be. So they are taken away from our lives. Even though we are struggling and working and doing all of these things, we don't even see how they enjoy it. We think when we buy something for them, they're enjoying it. We buy a game for them, they're enjoying it. But what is our enjoyment with them? They're enjoying the game, and what are we enjoying with them? Watching them play the game? Is that the enjoyment in having children, to watch them play games and you what? They go in a room and they stay there and they're enjoying themselves, so I am happy. This is what this world and this system has brought us today to. So our marriages are also facing a blank point with even this situation when it comes to parents and the condition of the world that demands from us that both parents must work to fill the service and the industry and the system that we are living in today. And what happens out of this? One of the most threatening situations today, husband working and wife working, wife becomes pregnant. I cannot afford to have this baby now. I now started my job and my career and I have extra classes and I have a degree to finish. I need to abort this baby now. I cannot carry on with this pregnancy no more. What do we do? Do we tell her no? I'm the boss here. This is my child. She says, well, I am helping you pay the bills. I am helping you pay the mortgage for this house. We cannot function without my job. I need to work. So you tell your wife, well, all right, then I'll just get rid of the child. Just get rid of the child. So in parts of the world today, what do we know about what takes place when it comes to this principle of abortion and the system of life that we live in today? Because of what happens. In England, what is the rate of abortion per year? It is nearing 1 million every year. 1 million cases of abortion every year. And that is only what is recorded. All right? In America, it is also over 1 million every year. Over 1 million every year. In Japan, one of the countries where time is really money because everything is business for them. And the end result must be profit. The rate of abortion in that Japan is 2 million. Because everybody works in Japan. And nothing keeps them back. 2 million. And if that is not just enough, in the Soviet Union, what we call part of Russia, the rate of abortion is over 12 million. 12 million. Because of what? If we have gotten married to make abortion by the millions, if the institution of marriage, and this is not only for married cases, this will also be what? People who have not gotten married and just seem to just living together and shack up, as we will call it, or they just live in a cohabitation relationship, or what we call common law relationships. All of these things affect the system of marriage to the extent that this is the level of abortion that takes place. And this is not even talking about the Caribbean. Because we don't have enough statistics to even tell how much people get abortion in this part of the world. And it is in the thousands. Thousands or hundreds of thousands. And far less for South America, we don't even know. For Colombia and all these parts, we don't even know. So it can be billions of people are what? Or potential babies are aborted. Either by what? The system of life that we live today. We live today. This is what the world presents. This is what the world presents before us. It is presenting before us a people and a world. And understanding this makes me understand that there's this particular clip that always shows when you go onto YouTube and these different sites that tells you that time will come when the Muslims will be taking over the whole world in numbers by their mere producing more children. Right? That the world will be dominated by Muslims. And I never really take it on because I never thought it being serious or because these statistics may be wrong. But when you start to understand the system that we live in, you would know that Muslims on the whole, and alhamdulillah, we must say, praise and thank to Allah, that at least if it's one thing, we understand that we adhere some aspect of the deen, and we hold on to having children, and maintaining children, and keeping family within that system of children. And we abhor the fact that one would what? Commit abortions because of the nature of what a relationship is. So if we come close to understanding this, we would understand what population is like. And it is showing that the world's population is dwindling in societies that have maintained and continue to maintain this system of life. So a time would come that we ourselves, who are the largest 60s and 70s boom baby series, who are the largest in the population in the world, will eventually become the largest that will phase out. And then the world population will also drop. Because there shows and it is proven that we cannot sustain this level of not having the amount of children in the world. So the planning that was done by the system that we live is not possible for human beings, according to their studies, for us to continue to have longevity in a life like this. So our system itself is telling us that we are working in a relationship, bringing about children, having abortions. It goes to the extent so that doctors are saying abortions have become so easy. A woman would just go for lunch, walk into a walk-in and walk-out clinic and have a suction and what? Baby disappear and walk out back and go back to work. And goes back to work. Where's the feeling? Where's the love and the compassion that one would have and the desire to have a child in a marriage? And to lose a child, or to even have the acceptance that you're now being in the state of having conceived or having that inability to have a child, and now just no feelings, you just disappear with this child? No what? No sort of concern that it happens to be just like this? Where is marriage in all of this? The system that we have put ourselves in, this is one of the greatest destruction that is before us. Before us. Then all of this is behind one thing, the economic drive that we live in today in this world. Everything is about how we will survive. How we will survive. And we ask ourselves as Muslims, if marriages are like this in the world today, if systems of having children, an institution of marriage is supposed to be like this, and this is what is happening, is this really happening amongst Muslims as well? Muslims who live in Western civilizations, Muslims who are now being affected in different parts of the world, which are so-called Muslim states, are they also being affected by this type of danger? Or are we going to see a total destruction of Muslims? When we continue and look at this, what really happens when you look at marriage and the way we look at it from our religion and state. Before marriage was registered, today we have what? Legal documents for marriage, isn't that so? You must have a legal officer to get you married, and you must have what? A legal paper to say that I am married to this person. Who makes it legal? States have made it legal, be it from Saudi Arabia to China, any part of the world that you travel, most of the places now, there is a legal way and a legal document by which marriages are conducted. Why? Why the states have went and governments have went ahead in making legal documents for marriage? Because in marriage, one of the most difficult things in marriages are that women and men, both of them, go through so much tests and trials that prior to this, a man will just get married to a woman, he doesn't like her, he just puts her one side, pick up someone else and he gone. Puts her out of the house. She has no say, no value in that relationship. No say, no value. Prior to what? Intervention of states. So many women were facing difficulties and hardships in marriages. This is totally opposed to what Islam is saying. But this is what happens in the Western societies and the systems that existed before states and government have allowed and intervened into marriages, because there was an abuse and a wanton abuse of women. And it continued to the extent that people were living now, apart from abuses and abandoning them, they say, no, you must register your marriages. Now, people say, okay, yeah, we register one marriage, and they have what? Common law relationships. So Job's telling us today that husband and wife, they're not really married anymore. They don't have a legal paper. They're just working together. So we could share an apartment. So they're living like husband and wife. Calling it what? Common law relationship. Living like this. So they end up living together and working, and after some years they might have a child in the relationship. Or they might build a building together and might have some type of assets together. The state comes now. One of them decides to pack up and leave. Says, you come out of here, this is mine. State says, no, in common law relationship, now the common law wife has what? A right to own. Because they see the danger of what happens to women and the intervention that they needed to put in place. Because this is what we are living in, a system where women are being, their rights are being abused. In Islam, this could never be the case. But this is what they call marriage and so-called common law relationship with. That you only could have one legal wife, but you could have a dozen common law wives and have all of them what? Suffering on the outside. While one legal woman what? Takes the right of everything that they own. So many women say, once I have everything, he can have any amount he wants on the outside. This is not marriage, and this is not what you want for your what? Your husband. But that is what is afforded in our society, in our system that we live in today. Then, the other aspect of marriage that we see today, and not even call a marital relationship, what we call single parenting today. Single parenting is a real technical, nice term for when the father becomes a phantom father. You know a phantom father? Like the Knight Rider? Like the real silver boy, superstar cowboy. He just comes, he has a child, and he rides off into the sunset. You don't see him again. He disappears. So many people now have what? Single parent family. And they have to live in a relationship in like a system that we live in today, like this. But it's called single parent. Single parent. What does Islam tells us about that in our relationship? We have to understand what we live in and what sometimes Muslims do today in order to hold men to their what? Responsibility when they have children. Because sometimes some Muslim men also operate like what? Phantom father. They don't take care of their own what? Responsibility. Don't take care of them now. Allah will take care of you in the next life. Without a doubt. Because this is not about what? What we see in society is what Islam tells us, which we will come to, but we want to understand what is happening with our society and the system that we live in today, that what destruction is before us, and we want to fashion our lives according to it. So, all of these things, the state say now, a man beats up his wife, abuses his wife. She cannot say, long ago, a man could tell and put his wife in ward 1, we call sentence, insanity ward. He had to give approval for it. In long ago time, not too long ago, a man had rights over his wife that he could put her in what? A madhouse, as we would say. He had rights that he could have what? Keep her as just as though she's what? A belonging in the home. This is not what our Islam teaches us, but this is what this system still has today. That women are kept in these types of conditions, but they think it is what? Liberation. It is not liberation to be abused. It is no right for a man to abuse a woman and think that she has liberation and freedom. That is not freedom. If you are living with someone and you have an altercation with them that the man has the right to beat you up, that is not what? Liberation. That is not part of this deen, but it is what we see in society today. And we can go into the levels and the number of people who get killed out of domestic violence. And what happens today, apart from all of this, is that today in our world, our children could ask the question when they see their daddy and they see a next person looking like their daddy and say, that is your mommy. You understand it? Because many same-sex marriages today are taking place and they are adopting children. They are what? Adopting children and calling it a marriage and an institution today. Years ago, if that would have taken place, they would have found it far-fetched, crazy to understand that such abhor and dislike act would take place. But today in our society, it is allowed for such people who are sick to mind and bring up children. Bring up children. This is what is happening in the institution of marriage in the world today. That there are many cases, not just one, many cases, thousands and thousands of cases like this happening in the world today. Not just actually going into the millions, it should be not thousands, millions. Millions, not just thousands, millions exist in the world like this in an institution of what? Marriage. Many people are proud about it. Those people, they are proud about it. But this is not what Islam teaches us about marriage. And we ourselves must be concerned because even amongst us, there are people who proclaim to be like this. And they want to show their rights like this. But this Islam totally prevents this. It prevents this. This is happening in our society today. And we are calling it, and they are calling it, marriage. But this can never be. Because any society and any place that such actions and acts are allowed to continue, it has been proven that that society in itself is also dwindling in numbers. They will also fall in numbers. They are no longer going to be producing the amount of people that is needed to continue their civilization and their community to grow. It is only going to die. It is only going to create more chaos, more fitna, more wrong within themselves because Allah has cursed such actions. These are amongst the few things that happen within our systems, in our own country. Only in 1912 did such laws become enacted that legally someone would what? Have marriages, legal document to prove that they are married. But in Islam, in states other than Islam, where Islamic states are, they also have legal documents to also prove this, that you are married to someone. Why? Because this is a source of protection for both spouses. And in the system that we live today in, it tells us that when it comes to any type of interactions and conflicts, this marriage certificate talks. This marriage certificate talks. Because sometimes the man will have to walk and leave everything behind. Because the marriage certificate says it all. And that is something that we ourselves in Islam have what? To understand as Muslims, how do we deal with relationships like that? Apart from what the certificate can do, is to understand what happens behind it. So, this system tells us clearly what is going to happen to us and our children. Then it comes and tells us, when we look at children and the upbringing of children, right, we've seen that the world is dwindling. And families today, most families today, how many children they look at having? 2 or 1, and maximum 3. Maximum of 3. And sometimes that 3 seems to be what? Too much to bear. Too much to bear. And we are following whose lifestyle? What makes us feel that 3 is just a good number to have as the amount of children, or 2 is just enough? And who provides sustenance to them? The idea is that number and the amount of children, the restriction to children is not dependent on how much, and we really look at what people tell us in society. and what is beneficial. But really and truly, what we are doing by controlling numbers really what? Destroy what Allah has made us in a relationship for marriage to be. Because in a world like what we have today, children, parents are preferred to be called child-free. A woman in our time don't want to say, well, I am childless. You know. Childless means that they cannot have children. But today they turn it around. It's also something that they're very sad about or affected by. But professional women today in a marriage will be preferred to be called child-free. Mean stress-free. No child to what? Tag along. Nobody pulling up my clothes. Nobody messing up my clothes. Nobody dragging along. Nobody taking away my freedom of time. Nobody doing all of these things to me. Child-free. Societies today, what we live in, is that many times you will see now in Western civilization that they want to be free from children because it takes away from their life. So even while we live in marriage institution and we live in that relationship, many people in our system that we live in today in the world, they don't want to have children. They don't want to have children. Long ago it used to be a big difficulty. Today it is what? Better not to have children. Because some people say, look, you're getting married to me, I ain't having no children. You know. I don't want children. So if you want to be with me, know that I don't want any children. You think that's really something right? That really making sense? That they want to get married, but they don't want to have what? Children. And they're making this what? A proclamation and a condition and a prerequisite to their marriages too. But we're not talking about pre-marriages, we're talking about what the relationship is, that you're going into a marriage, and one of the core things of marriage is also to have what? Children. But you are telling the husband up in front, I don't want children. I don't want children. Because that is going to hold me back. Right? So this is what is also hampering our society today. It may not be so fast and entrenched in this part of the world that we live in, but believe or not, it is going to come faster than we think it is happening. And it is already hitting our part of the world today. But we have not seen the gravity of the situation. And maybe in the next 10 to 15 years, things that we have never seen, we will see. Because 20, 30 years ago, the things that we are talking about here today are normal. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, people have said these things will never happen. And if it happens, we will riot, we will protest, we will fight against it. But in marriages today, this is a norm. This is normal. This is normal. So, people now, after getting married, what age they get married at? 30, 35, from 19 and 20 years in the early days. This was the early days to get married at. Now they're getting married at 20, 25, some 30, till they finish 40 years. So, what are we having out of this? One of the key problems that we are seeing today because of this, in Western civilization, understand what is happening in marriages today. When a woman is most primed to have children, is not when they reach what? 35, 45, and 55, is at their early peak in life. The early peak in life is the best time for them to have children. So when they reach at this age and they get married, it is hardly likely for fertility to actually take place. That's why we always encourage our what? Young men and women, have children while they're what? Young. Yes, stand the stress early. Don't wait to put everything in place. Make your children, have your children early in life. Enjoy them as you grow along in life. See, they grow and you grow. You age, they also age, but you enjoy every moment that you grow with them. So it is essential to understand that Western civilization today, the reason why they cannot even have more than that amount is because of the fact as well that they have put themselves in a position that because of the system that we live in today, they have to finish their career, get married, have children at an older age, and because of this, even when they are older, they cannot even take care of their own children because they no longer have the strength and the ability to look after their own children. They no longer have the strength and ability to look after it because when they leave work and they come home, they don't want to see anything, they don't want to hear anything. They are too old to even deal with their children. And when the children come of ripe age, they are even so old that they don't have what? Any part to play in the life of their children. That's one of the sicknesses and disease that is affecting us in our society that we live in today. So, when we look at all of this, and then look at what society is bringing out of our children today, we would see that the absenteeism of parents in the early part of having children, the absence of parents not being at home with their children, leads to our children becoming what? If not criminals, committing crimes, involving every type of indecent behavior, involving all sorts of things that are not totally right that they ought to live by. This is what Western society have brought with all of this package. Not that we cannot have the enjoyment and the comforts of this world, but we must know the price that we are paying for it. We must know the price that we are paying for the enjoyments that we are enjoying of the world today, and what we are giving up for it. We are giving up marriages. Many people in this world today who call themselves married couple are giving up their marriages. If we look at the cases of divorces in the world and how many people are likely to get married, it is showing that not even quarter of the people in the world's population in different countries are getting married. They prefer to remain single or to remain in a relationship with someone for some time, but not to get married. Just quarter of some countries' population of people who are potentially what? Prepared to get married. Only just a quarter. Some might be half. This is how they what? They are living in the world today. This is alarming. This is destruction waiting to what? Just happen, because we want to enjoy a life as though it is paradise, and thinking that all these things we are sacrificing and making effort for, what is it doing to marriages? It is destroying the institution of marriage. It is destroying the institution of marriage. That tells us, when we look at it today, what does Islam have to say about all this? Where does Islam look at marriage, and what the Western world look at marriage? Mind you, not only that the Muslims are looking at what marriage is, Christian scholars and non-Christian scholars and religious leaders of different religions have also seen it, that the danger of what system that we live in today have destroyed everything that even their prophets had brought, had totally destroyed marriage supposed to be. What marriage supposed to be no longer exists in their religion. So then, as Muslims, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? Follow what we see around us? And when we see other people complaining, well, I want my rights. I am a free woman. I'm a free man. I could do what I want. Really and truly, what is really freedom in a marriage? What is really freedom in a marriage? Some people say they get married to be free from their parents. They don't want to live in their parents' house no longer, so they get married. So they come out of that environment so they could probably have some more time to line, or they want to do more of this. I could do what I want now. I'm married as my own boss. That is not what marriage was for in the first place. So when we come, inshallah, in the next class, we're going to start to look at what Islam tells us about marriage. And if we ask ourselves before we leave, contemplate on this. What major things cause conflict in our marriage? What are the things that would cause conflict in our marriage? And you think about it. Is it money? When I mean money, I mean, is it the job, the money, the things that we want along with money, the things that affect us? Is it money that tells us, I want this, I want that? Money being what? The single word, but everything that surrounds it. Is it money that cause conflict in our home? That you couldn't get this for me, you couldn't buy that for me, or you couldn't do this? Why do we have a house? Is it money? Really? Then ask yourself, what about the relationship that we have? I thought when you get married, we should what? Be intimate. But when you come home, you're tired, you sleep. When she come home, she's on the internet, or she's tired from work, or she don't hear you, she don't see you. Where is the intimacy and the relationship gone? Is it that a problem within our relationship today, that I'm trying to talk to you, but you don't have time for me? We don't have a relationship anymore, we can't talk? Is this a conflict and a reason for destruction in our marriage? And we ask ourselves, after all of that, how well we communicate with our families today. or a husband and a wife. Is there any level of communication? Is this a reason for marriages falling apart? Communication? People take that word to be very likely. I just talk to she. I talk to him. But really and truly, they don't really talk, you know. You ever hear the term, go tell your father so and so? Because when the what? Mother doesn't talk to the father, she sends the message to the children. Go and tell your father, I want this. Go and tell your mother, no. Because they're not communicating, so who they're using as the medium? Not the phone, because they can't even talk on the phone. So they're using what? The children as their means of communication. So we ask ourselves, is it really children being targeted or a relationship communication is a problem? And then we ask ourselves, what about children in that relationship? Is it the children the fault for our breakup? And ask ourselves, what about the key thing? In-laws. These and many more, inshallah, when we start next class, we're going to look at and some of the things that really affect us in marriage. So I pray, inshallah, hope that we make the effort to really understand the seriousness and the nature that is before us when it comes to this important institution of marriage. And if we really are prepared and equipped with the heavy license to drive this marriage truck on the road. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability and the guidance, inshallah. Let's make dua, inshallah. Ameen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.